But listen, man, maybe to kick things off, actually, we could start with yourself. So listen, this is Alex, everyone. Alex and CEO of Aware. Aware is a damn cool tool and sits really, really nicely as a tech stack with Triggerfy. But listen, mate, maybe you want to introduce yourself because also you've gone on a cool journey with Aware. It'd be nice to start a little bit about you, the company, and maybe
Yeah.
a little bit about like I guess your kind of social journey and what got you interested in social selling and building a brand in the first place.
Yeah. Um, I it's good to be here. Thank you. I agree with your thoughts on the like alignment of overlap. I was a sales leader before I got into entrepreneurship, and I built and ran a sales team. Um, and once I left, I was going to join somebody else. Fantastically didn't work out with that person, and I ended up just getting a couple inquiries for sales consulting. This was like 2017. And I started posting on LinkedIn just what I had learned in the hopes of maybe validating my learnings with other people. So I didn't have a strategy. I just was like, here's some stuff that am learning and thinking about. More like an old school, venture capitalist kind of journal before that was popular on LinkedIn. And to my delight, people started reaching out and being like, hey, I like what you said. Can you help us with this, that, and the other? And so that ended up becoming, oh, let's make a strategy out of this. And codified it a little bit more. And then this was, 8 years ago. So, now there's so much more stuff around it. This is an industry now, and it didn't used to be an industry. Now it's a whole niche into it itself. But
Yeah.
it didn't start that way. And sometimes I miss those days. But here I am with Aware helping grow the industry by providing tools for it
Yeah.
and, talking about it and educating about it too. But that's kind of how we started Aware. Was we just got so much revenue from the agency from LinkedIn that we thought, okay, this is the next good use case for SaaS.
Love it. You know what? I find like a lot of SaaS companies come from some form of like consulting um or agency as well. Like it's quite
Yeah.
interesting. Like and I think it's like the best thing is right. It's like go into an industry and learn it through like providing like a physical product service, and that then allows you to work out like how you can replicate what you're doing essentially.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, you
but
added
bef
the use case.
yeah, exactly. Build up the use case. So today, like, I know that we want to go into like a particular use case. Funny enough, about Mr. Brady, who's on the call today, using both Aware and Triggerfy, and kind of using like a content strategy, tracking particular individuals to help them with when it comes to like outbound and selling. But before we get into that, I guess what I'd be really curious to understand, which I get asked like all the time, is more just like, well, how do I get going when building like my own personal brand? And I don't know if you have like any views or thoughts on, let's say, and we probably have it on the call today, like someone's just starting out on their kind of content journey, their personal brand journey. What would you say are the things that you need to focus on, and what are the common mistakes that people perhaps make when starting to build their personal brand?
The most common mistake people make these days is the over strategizing of the personal brand, meaning the like, I'm waiting, I'm thinking I'm going to do this. All right, I'm going to buy this course. You buy a course, you join a cohort or some sort of program, and you're like, all right, this is it. I'm going to learn a strategy. And the strategy keeps you in like a very tight box of like, okay, you got to define your content pillars. And you only talk about your content pillars and you reframe them into these different formats. And it's these formats and these pillars. And if you just talk about those and your hooks are good, people will buy from you somehow. And it ends up coming across as robotic. It's really hard and boring to write about. Only that very narrow subset of topics in a very subset of ways. Most of these cohorts either tell you to engage with each other only,
Hmm.
or they don't really prescribe an engagement strategy. And what has been missed, and what I would recommend people do instead, is go sit in a forest for 3 hours and think about what is it you want to add value to the market in doing. Why are you here? Before you think about your content pillars and choosing a function of business and a niche, like I want to do SEO for architects because that sounded nice. And then you think about all the content pillars around SEO for architects rather than saying, gosh, what is my superpower as a human? What do I really want to solve? And what is the message I think I want to deliver to the market about how that thing could be better? If you were an architect, great, I love it. And your whole position is like, man, I was growing my architecture firm, and I was noticing that none of my peers had any clue about SEO. I cracked the nut on it, and that's what I'm here to talk about. Cool, that's authentic, that's credible because you sort of lived it, you lived the problem, or at least you're in touch with the problem. But this like divorced from the business problem you're solving LinkedIn strategy that focuses on just the hooks and this kind of like checking the boxes and almost going through the motions
Yeah.
of social media rather than starting with I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business person solving a problem for a certain set of customers. I'm going to use LinkedIn as distribution, as marketing, biz dev, but it's not like a LinkedIn business. LinkedIn helps your business versus the other way around. So I really, and no disrespect to cohorts and courses. I have coached people on LinkedIn. I have produced courses. It's fine. But if you're feeling this rigidity and burnout, it might be because whatever program you learned is keeping you in a very tight box of other people who are also staying poor and producing content and not really solving a very meaningful problem. And if you're in that box, then it's time to get out. As Steven got, out of that box long ago and has been solving very meaningful problems.
And
So
and
that's the main thing.
we like it's interesting concept that, right? Because like I guess the box or the rigidity of like content pillar themes makes people feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And one of the big challenges that I see, especially when I was like running teams in the past, trying to get like my team to post, is like they're just like so nervous about like what people will like maybe they don't think that they have enough value to add. I think is probably like their like fears like well like and they overthink it, right? They just spend so long thinking like how
Right.
like you have to like create the most perfect thing. Like how would you talk someone off the ledge on that? Because like ultimately the more raw and authentic, at least from my experience, the better these posts are. Like it doesn't have to be the most amazing content. Um,
Yeah.
it doesn't you don't have to research something for like 7 hours before you post it. But like a lot of people think that it has to be just like bang and people are going to gain so much from it. Um, and ultimately it leaves them to never posting. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know what your thoughts are on like talking people off that like ledge of being like, just don't be afraid, just get started, get posting.
That level of personal change won't be achieved through thinking and talking about LinkedIn or even business. Like the decision to take risk in general with your thoughts and opinions and skills is like you just have to get over that hump yourself. The way I reasoned it out is I thought when I was starting my first business on my own, I was like, okay, I'm going to start talking about what I know. If people think it's valuable, then I deserve to be doing what I'm doing. It's good and right and justified that I'm doing what I'm doing because I also know what I'm talking about. And if I don't know what I'm talking about, what business do I have doing this at all? I really should. It's the right thing to do for me to not try to run a business. I should go back and learn some more stuff first.
Mm,
And if you like that line of thinking, I recommend it. Because if you're like, I want to do whatever niche this is, I'm going to be a reseller of LinkedIn automation tools, and that's my whole thing. Like, okay, cool.
yeah.
Is this like, uh, test yourself? If the market thinks you don't know what you're talking about on that subject, then you don't know what you're talking about. You're not helping them.
Mm,
Um, and the worst thing that happens is you just go back and get a job and learn more first. Maybe you go work at a tool company and then you come back out and start talking about it again. Um, but yeah, this like I have to be an entrepreneur. It has to work, but also I'm scared. Well, can't solve that for you by talking about content strategy. I have to just convince you that it's okay to take risk. And the worst thing that happened is you dial your risk back. You go get a job and whatever, figure it out.
yeah.
But it has to happen inside. Like you have to make that choice for yourself.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny because it's like that's like fundamentally like the biggest blocker that people have with building a
Yeah,
personal brand.
true.
I oddly like weirdly didn't find it on LinkedIn. Like other socials, like maybe I was like more like concerned about what I posted. LinkedIn, I felt like because it was business, I was like, "Oh, I don't really care. Like I just put stuff out there and if people like it, they'll like it. If not, I'll keep trying to tailor my content until I find something that like is my
Right.
niche that I can talk about. And eventually it happened. But what would be cool then, like building on that is then to go into like how can you create a content strategy that basically, because at the end of the day, there's two reasons why you build. There's multiple reasons, but like the main reasons are like either you just want to get famous or like you want to use it to drive revenue, right? And I think the Stephen Brady method, and for those that are on the call, the Stephen Brady method, he is on the call today as well. We actually did a webinar last week, which we did a recording of and in on our YouTube if you want to check it out, where he walked through the flow. And today we're going to go even deeper, and me and Alex are going to try and rip apart his strategy and talk about why he does certain things and maybe any areas of improvement perhaps as well would be an interesting one. But Mr.
Yeah.
Brady, if you're in the chat, let us know how much. I can't remember the exact amount of money that you made from doing this strategy, but you made a certain amount within like 6 or 8 weeks. I can't remember what it was, but it was a ridiculous amount, and it just shows the
58K,
power.
48K.
48K. There we go. Look at that. So 48K, I think it was like 6 weeks or something like that. You made that as well, which just shows you the power of like social if it can be done and harnessed well. So, high level overview, and then we're going to dive deep down into it. Essentially, was using a combination of Triggerfy, Aware, Clay, and HeyReach. I think are the four tools that Brady used, monitoring key thought leaders, engaging, interacting, and building that brand through Aware, enriching with Clay, and then basically actually kind of running the outbound side of things through HeyReach is like the kind of flow that he was doing. So we'll go into like the very first step, which was effectively using using Triggerfy to go and find thought leaders before chucking them into to Aware essentially. So what he was using Triggerfy for was going and finding people talking about like relevant content based on keywords. Now, here's an interesting one, Alex, is like what he's trying to basically do is go and find key influences that he can monitor where their following and their engagement basically were drawing in the correct attention. So at this point, like Mr. Brady is, or you may or may not be thinking this, but he's like, I don't have the brand that's like garnishing enough, and I need to go tap into like other people's conversations, other people's like networks as well, and try and go out of like my own like ecosystem and bubble. I don't know if you've ever done this much, like monitoring like other thought leaders and seeing people engaging with them. If you have, like, how would you think about picking people? Like, is there ever been a strategy that you've used if you do track thought leaders like this out of curiosity?
Yeah, I mean, this is good. I think you have like a different, you have really good filtering on this. This is like an area we have some overlap, and I like use Aware's influencer and discovery feature similarly, but
Nice.
I do, I've done this in two ways. So one is like direct prospects, and the other is more sort of people who might be peers or even competitors talking about a same topic. Um, Oftentimes you'll find that if you build an engagement list of, well, we'll get into this in a bit, but like just prospects, their posts aren't always very good because they're not in the business of content, which makes sense. So your engagement with them will be kind of, um, I mean, in some industries, it's like all they post is new jobs and occasionally very bland corporate updates. So it's not going to be a very good way to build your brand if all you're engaging with is that. So then you need kind of the influencer side of things too, right? So on that screen, you saw, Eric Novoslavsky talking about outbound. If you're in the outbound industry, if you're Steven, right? Engaging with Eric, engaging with Kellen Casey, engaging with my post, and I'll see my name in later things, so we can kind of see how he uses that. But engaging with peers too, they're going to have much better content, and also they will be the ones watched by your prospects. So engage with prospects and the people your prospects are watching too. Um, Basically be part of the conversation. Another big mistake I see is they build an engagement list of like, it's so tight. It's like, I only want to engage with structural engineering CEOs in the UK with 50 to 200 employees with this specific keyword in their posts. And if it's not that, I don't want to see it. And I'm like, cool, you have such tunnel vision. You're going to come across as extremely one-dimensional and you won't build any trust. So like build the engagement lists from not just like prospect sniping, which is like, okay, fine, you can do it, but you're not going to get very far. And
Yeah.
then broaden it out to like, what's the industry conversation? Um, so yeah, you can see and aware like the way that he's built this is clay experts, founders who post, industry influencers, marketers. Look at the diversity of these feeds. That's really what we want is feed diversity. We don't want randomness. Like LinkedIn's feed is often kind of random. It just
Mm.
shows you what it thinks will keep you on the feed to sell more ads, which can be, like it's just playing on your mental sensibilities and subconscious.
Yeah.
So don't do that. But notice how this isn't just prospects. And that's a big key. If it's just prospects, then it's going to be too tight. You won't have any good content to engage with. You won't be part of the conversation. So yeah, in
Yeah.
Aware, I build these engagement feeds based on a variety of things.
It's a
Um,
mix, isn't it, by the looks of this? Is like prospects from the founders who post, probably like clay experts, like industry individuals. And now I really liked your part about like the LinkedIn feed, like it just gives you everything, right? You don't need to see everything. It goes back to the original point, like what are you wanting to use LinkedIn for? Is it just to get famous? Like, or is it like, are you trying to use it to social sell? If you're
yeah,
trying to use it to social sell, like you only need to focus on the content that is important. And in this case, it's curating that news feed so that he can engage with these relevant individuals, which I imagine, and I'm curious to hear your take. Like, well, one thing, by the way, like commenting on people's posts is like the best way of building your brand, best way of getting eyeballs on you, more so than like actually posting, because especially like if he's tapping into like industry influencers and commenting on their content through Aware, you're going to get more eyeballs than on because I don't know how many followers you have, Mr. Brady, but you're probably not going to have more than the industry followers that you have. So it's a really good way of tackling into the correct audience and building that brand. And it's probably actually one of the best things that you can do if you're starting out building a
yeah,
personal brand as well. Is just start commenting on people's stuff as many times as you can,
yeah.
adding value.
Adding value is the key thing. Like if you are the guy at a conference who talked to everyone, but all you said was dumb stuff, it's the same thing on LinkedIn. If you comment on 500 accounts, but all you say is dumb stuff, like you will have left a bad or no impression at all. So that's the key part is like do the engagement, be part of the conversation, but do add value. Like don't forget this isn't just I did the engagement, give me my leads now. It's like were you right? Were you interesting? Were you insightful? Like did you help people? And that's
Hmm.
not something that you can do with a tool. That's like are you an interesting and valuable professional in whatever niche you're in? So
Yeah.
um
No,
yeah, I
I
love this method. Steven is also smart and capable that has to be said too. Of like, you got to be smart and capable at whatever it is you're doing, or you probably shouldn't be doing this.
yeah.
Um, but
No,
yeah, and if you're not,
I
go
completely
learn it.
agree.
If you're a sales rep, go to your product marketing team and like learn to be smart and capable. I'm not saying this is insurmountable, but that's a part of the tool set too.
And one thing that he's not got in here, and by the way, David, we are going to share the exact workflow. We'll share like the tables and everything like that as well uh, after the call. But like one thing that he's not done here in this workflow is, or not talked about, he probably does it, but the post and scheduling side, right? Like so, let's just take a minute. So at the moment, he's gone and found individuals and thought leaders via Triggerfy, downloaded that, chucked it into where to create these content engagement streams. You can do essentially is like what the process is thus far. Now engaging with people through Aware on their content stream, but like, what is the would there be a strategy about then creating content based on these engagement streams? So like using kind of the post and scheduling
Yeah.
side of yours, and like if so, how would you start to think about creating content for certain like kind of I guess audiences probably be the way to preface that. Or
Yeah. Good question. And that, so this is another thing where it's like it can't come from the tool, but the tool can help you do it better.
yeah.
So let's talk about how to start the content strategy. Let's say you're selling consulting services to sales leaders to improve their RevOps execution, outbound, sort of your full cycle sales motion. Who else is involved? Well, VP of sales, but also founder, CEO, depending on how big the company is. Marketing is interested in it. and we want to appeal to marketing too. We want to be on their side. VCs and investors are going to hopefully refer you to their portfolio companies. So getting on their radar is good. So see how I'm tying together all of these different things that you saw on Stephen Brady's list. Now, okay, in what sense do VCs and investors care about your approach to sales execution? Well, I mean, writing what you write in the context of an investor, and if it's VC, it's going to be more sort of growth focused. If it's PE, it's be more kind of cash flow and efficiency focused. But you're fine tuning based on your experience, the lens of your content. So you instead of all of your posts being oriented towards VP of sales or just founder CEO, some of them are um, like investors, how to tell if your sales leader is full of shit or not. Like that's a great hook. It's not a hook targeted at the founder. It's actually almost like kind of jarring for the founder. But in that sense, you could write a post that a good VP of sales would be like, yeah, it's a good post. They can see it's intended for the VC, but again, you're part of the conversation. You're mixing all these workflows. You're showing, I understand how my function fits into all these other areas of the business, these other parts of the industry. I see the context around what it is that I'm selling and how it links together with everything else.
Yeah.
Now, if you've done this for a while and you have 50, 100, 200 posts up, great. Plug it into Aware, say kickoff model fine tuning. We will spend 40 minutes on our backend fine tuning an AI model on everything you've written. Now you can just prompt your own AI and it's going to sound really freaking good because it's going to be your own stuff, essentially kind of repurposed, changed around, adapted, right? You can't prompt that, sales execution model to talk about paid ads, it's not going to know. But if you want to talk about more of the same, it's going to help a lot. So I
Mm.
write a lot of my content with that now, but you can't jump to that. If you tried, it's like, well, what are we going to fine tune a model on? You haven't said anything.
Yeah.
Technically, we can train it on someone else, but then it's like, okay, well, then you got to make sure you're making sure it's your own because if you build your own brand that is full of someone else's substance, you don't have a brand. So I would be careful with using like viral post generators as your content strategy. Instead, think about the business problems approached from all these different lenses.
Yeah.
Talk about
I
those things.
completely agree. Completely agree. Um, nice. So now we've got like, okay, we've found thought leaders. We're doing like social warming, right? So we're like engaging with their content. We're creating content in line with these key audiences. The next kind of key equation on the Brady method effectively is then starting to pull the engagement that these thought leaders are effectively getting. And so what he's done here, and you can see is actually monitoring you, Alex, which is quite funny. So he's
Yeah.
basically pulling any of the engagement that you're getting on your LinkedIn profile, and also a few others here, and pulling that engagement and basically sending that engagement through to Clay. Essentially, is what's going on here. And so what's really nice is it's creating like an evergreen, he's being smart, right? Because he's creating like an evergreen campaign by monitoring these thought leaders, but he's using you to comment on all of this content. So when he comes to reach out to these engagement individuals, chances are they will know who he is because he's commenting on your content through Aware, pulling the engagement. So, for example, Matt has most likely seen the comment that Mr. Brady has made, and therefore the content, or sorry, the email or the LinkedIn message, whatever it is, when it comes to reaching out to that individual, will most likely get a reply because there would have been that like it is, I think it's like a psychological term, right? If you see something, you see the number five everywhere and they ask you what number
Yeah.
you're thinking, like five comes up, right? Like it
Sure.
creates that like connection point. And that's kind of like, I think the mastermind behind the strategy, which I really, really, really like, is this like he's hedging his bets that like he's, gonna get a reply based on this like strategy that he's using, which is pretty cool. Um,
Very.
and I think the thing is like not a lot of people think like this. They think, okay, well, hey, let me, and we got a lot of users, right, that just pull like the engagement and then just reach out. But like, the reason that it converted so high and the reason that like the reply rate is most likely so good is timing, but also like the fact that he has been hitting them up. and being like very active in engaging with that engagement pool essentially, which is the really cool
Yes.
part and clever.
I love that because he is not skipping the steps that a lot of people skip. And if you skip those steps, this strategy will not just backfire, it will like ruin you.
Yeah.
So the steps that he is not skipping, number one, Steven is using my engagement for his own commenting list building, but we know each other. If he was doing that and I didn't know him or like him, then I would be mad, and that would not work very well.
Hmm.
So he didn't skip that step. He's saying like Alex and I are friends. We've eaten crazy sandwiches in Lisbon and blah blah blah, and just like we know each other. Number one. Number two, actually engaging publicly and not just skipping to the private outbound interaction. So part of the conversation, remaining part of that, and then we'll get to this, but it's the actual message, like the what you are sending. So if you skip those steps, you pick random people you don't know, you don't have a relationship with, you don't engage publicly, and you send bad messages to them privately, like, "Hey, saw you engage with so and so. We sell this tool." Whoa, like you have a strong chance of really messing that up.
Hmm.
So if you're going to use this, that's the reason why this is so effective. Is those steps were not skipped, and if you do skip them, you will have this like empty robot strategy that you have carefully crafted with all these different tools, and you're spending all this money, and people are going to hate you.
Yeah. I
So
think
don't skip that.
it's like no like that comment section as well. Like no one really does that.
Yeah.
No one actually spends the time commenting on other people's content because when they do, like it will be like a half-ass comment. Like you've got to add value for this thing to work. Um and to get eyeballs like on you. Like that's the ultimately the thing is like to get eyeballs on that comment, you need to add value based on what you've originally posted about. Um, and then yeah, well, like let's go on to the message because it's interesting. So he then basically uses Clay, and Clay is used as like a identification or an ICP check, right? So it's making sure that the engagements, like he's filtering out Alex's friends and family essentially, and focusing
Yeah.
on like relevant people that he wants to reach out to. Before using HeyReach essentially to actually craft the outbound campaign. So automating the connection request, automating the LinkedIn message sent as well. Uh, any like, would you say any best practices around there, Alex, when you're like connecting number of messages to send on LinkedIn before we go into like the actual like copy?
Having spent some time in the like LinkedIn outbound space before, but not having been in it the last few years, I'm less of a good person to ask on this. My what I used to do then was it depended on who was doing the sending. So like when we were doing campaigns of, when I ran my agency of like founder CEO reaching out to early customers, two, maybe three, right? It ruins your impression as a busy founder and CEO if you send five messages.
Yeah,
Um, but some use cases for sending more depending on how far spaced out they are, what your tone is, what the context is, right? Um, but generally, I like the fewer the better and reapproach later if needed.
yeah,
People think it takes seven touches to get somebody to listen to you, so I have to have my sequence be at least seven touches. And it's like, nope, that's not the kind of that's the wrong application of that advertising aphorism. The better application is, they saw my profile five times on LinkedIn. They saw me commenting on posts seven times. They got one, maybe two outbound messages from me and a profile view. Those put together are all the touches that you're thinking of when you think you gotta, see somebody a bunch of times or see an offer a bunch of times, whatever. It's not this one channel knocking on your door seven times. That's wrong. Um,
no.
but yeah,
I
that's another mistake too.
I hate it when someone sends me more than three messages on LinkedIn. I think two is the max, in my
Two
opinion.
is a good max.
Initial message, and I think a video message is quite nice as well, or like a little audio or something shows it's personalized. But um, save that for email. Like if you're gonna smash someone, save that for email. Like you're right. Like it gives off the illusion that you're just there. Also, like I think people just like know then that like when you hit them that many times, it's like totally automated.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just bloody annoying, to be honest. I really like as someone who does a lot of outbound, like I really rage when I get like someone hitting me like 5 times on LinkedIn message, and it just completely puts you off. Like
Yeah.
and it doing anything with them as well.
Right.
Um, and I think you're right. Like I think that's a really, really interesting point. It's like it still takes potentially like 7 touch points, but those touch points aren't binary. Like it's not like you have to like be a physical message as a touch point. Um, like you said, it's commenting, liking, um, posting as well is like important because if they've connected with you, then they're going to see your content potentially as well. And just basically seeing you everywhere is like the key. It's like marketing 101. Like, you know, really, it's just like get your brand in front of them as many times as possible because chances are they'll then convert as a result.
Yeah. With the good impression. Like,
Well,
uh,
yeah, key
yeah,
part.
neutral or good, not in a bad way, right? So there's like, the all publicity is good publicity is like, nope, we can all very easily invalidate that rule. So like with all of these things, it's got to be high quality. You got to know your stuff. Like that's the more important step. Once you've done all those things and you are, having an offer or content strategy of substance, tools are great. Scaling is great because you're scaling good, not scaling stupid. So like biggest thing with anything, I mean, you could use Tricify and ruin your reputation in a day if you had a mind to, and you didn't know what you're talking about. Same thing with Aware. I mean, you could write 500 comments in an hour with Aware, and if they were no good, you would not have accomplished this goal. So this kind of addresses your question, Nico. Again, the steps to not skip before engaging with other people have engaged with. What is your relationship with the people with the one who posted the initial post? Do they know you? Do they like you? Do they dislike you? Are you their competitor? Like there's your spectrum. So ideally, it's not people who don't like you. Have you engaged with them publicly? If you're going straight to this is my competitor, I'm going to scrape their engagements and send them a DM. Like depending on what you send and how you do it, like your risk goes up. The stakes are much higher when you do that.
Yeah.
It's aggressive. It's very aggressive to do that. So if you're gonna do it, know what you're doing. You better know what you're doing. If you want more margin of error on this, um, stick to friendlies. Steven and I are friends. Like that's the reason this works. Steven comments on my content. That's a reason this works, and so on. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm always like stressing like, yes, the tools, don't forget the substance at every single step. And then it's going to feel much better. Then you're going to get to the point where like, yeah, 6 weeks, 48K or more. I mean, I've done, hundreds of thousands in a month before, which is not, that's not even to brag. That's just the natural outcome of using tools to scale, but having underlying substance.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think like if you're reaching out to people's like engagement that you don't know or competitors, like to be honest, I wouldn't even reference them in the message like that. Like if you're
yeah,
doing that, the best practices is to build value off the back of them engaging with content that's relevant to you, right? So like let's say you don't know Alex and you're tracking Alex, for example, and Alex talks about social selling. Like when you reach out to that person, don't I would never mention Alex because I also think it works in this case with Mr. Brady, but in a lot of cases, it's still just a bit creepy potentially being like, hey, I can see
yeah,
you're engaging with Alex. Like, be like, hey, like I see you're a fan of like social selling, and like go and build value around the topics that these individuals are interested in because they wouldn't be engaging with that in the first place if they weren't.
yeah. Or even don't
Um,
mention it at all and just send your message with the knowing of
yes.
what they're interested in, right? There is either you call it out or even don't. You just use it as information and you go with that knowing you are reaching a warmer audience.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And then let's have a look at the messages that he actually sends because he does
Yeah.
mention you. He
Yeah, he
he
does.
he goes straight in and calls you out in a good way.
Yes. And again,
Uh,
like
yeah,
want to stress like do this knowing that you've done the other steps. If
yeah,
you send, I've been a heavy user of Aware for 6 months now. Um, like he's done all the mental math to know that this checks out. That somebody engaging with my posts,
yeah.
I'm
Don't
the
make it
founder of
up. If
Aware,
you've never
we're
used
friends.
Aware, like don't make it up. Like, because you will get called
Yes. You will get called out, right? And as Steven said, like imagine getting flamed publicly by whoever it is that is at the center of this channel that you're using. Whoa, like that's a terrible way for this to backfire. So Steven is extremely confident and correct that I am not going to be mad at him for doing this. And you could always, he could, if he had any questions, he would know to just call me and be like, hey, dude, would you be mad if I did this? Like, so easy, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, here's
Yeah,
some,
no.
let's go through these.
It's good. Well, like looking at it, like there's two different messages, I think. Yeah, two different messages. Like one is like video based outreach. Like let's start there. Like where do you stand on like video based or like audio based outreach through LinkedIn?
Um, Again, I like it in context. I've seen a platform launch automated voice notes as a feature recently. Again, playing with fire, but high potential to scale stupid. Or if you're damn good, scale good. But like the nice thing about video, but also potential to backfire, is the etiquette is that you recorded this video for them. So you can go into making it clear with your video somehow that it wasn't just for them, but don't stride the line and risk getting caught. So either it's an ad, obviously an ad, and that's sort of okay, like all right, you're advertising and whatever, or it's a personal video. But if you use tools, you use Gen AI, you kind of overuse those things to compile your video, right? You have like, a talking head that isn't you, but it like you dress it up as if it is you that recorded the video on your iPhone, and you get anything wrong, anything at all wrong, you're done.
Yeah.
Backfires. So I would say if you're going to automate, don't be shy about that fact. You don't have to say it, but like don't straddle the line. Either it's actually personal or it's not, and you're okay with that. And design, record whatever it is with that in mind. I've never sent an automated video. I've never sent an automated voice note. I send email marketing. That's different. I do advertisements. I mean, I do all those things, right? But it's clear what I am doing when I'm doing it. And that's a big part of just like personal integrity that you have with the market is like if Steven sent me a personalized video and I saw something weird and I saw that like at some point it was created with AI and he references a detail about me that's not true, I'd be like, no, screw this. Like you're dead to me. Like you tried to pull one over on me. You tried to deceive me essentially. It triggers that very base part of the brain of like this person's here to take my sheep, get them out of our community. And
Mm.
that can't be turned off. So like whatever you do, it's better to just have that consistent integrity and not trigger the you're gonna take my sheep brain. As if you do that, you're gonna burn a bunch of prospects.
No,
So
I completely
I
agree.
love
And
all
like
these high fidelity communication methods. Just keep them honest.
yeah, I think like Raw is always just better, to be honest. Like
Yeah.
I would never I agree. Like do you remember those things like was it Vidyard who first did it? I can't remember. It was like that bloody like whiteboard and they put like your own
Yeah.
name like on there and it's like, oh my God, man.
Sucks so much.
It does. I think like listen, if you're going to use tools like that to like kind of personalize at scale, I almost would just like lean into it. Like that's like to avoid like the triggering the sheep is like, hey, like I'm an AI, like you know what I mean? Like just I think the best way is then just to like lean into these things. If you really feel compelled and you need the volume to do these things, uh to just go full frontal with it and see. I actually tried it once with email and I was like, hey, this is an AI email, totally written by AI. Like, what do you think? Type thing. And actually it got a really
Yeah.
good response because people were like, again, it's like you're being like weirdly honest through another like lens, but like I think in Steven's case, he always does it. I think he's confirmed there, right? He always like manually does it. And those results will always win, especially as more of these tools come into play, because the distrust will actually start to become in more and more as a result with like AI and everything like that getting better. So I would just if you're gonna do video and audio, just like get out your phone and just like take a quick video and then just
Yeah.
like slam it over. Like it will. I actually am more inclined to watch when I see someone like this, like on walking or whatever. Like I'm more curious, weirdly, like what they're gonna say than if it's like more of like a polished, and you're like, oh, I can't be bothered to watch them just like pitch the hell out
Yeah.
of me. Um,
So true.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then his actual like this other message there, he took a different strategy. This one was obviously referencing being an aware user, but I think let's take the fact that it's an aware user out the equation here. What I like about it is relevant straight away, right? Like because he's messaging someone who is obviously engaged with your content, right? So there's relevancy in the reach out, which is going to create the emotional reaction being like, okay, this is topical for me right now. Um, and the other key thing that I really like about this is it's super short, super concise, and there's no pitch in it, right? Like it's trying to position himself as a thought leader and be like quite consultative with the approach. Um, which I think is really interesting. And then like this response, I really enjoy like I do really enjoy
Yeah.
like the use of GIFs and like and just like because it humanizes him, like it like do you know what I mean? And that's kind of what the video does as well. It like puts a face to a name. It's like takes you away from just being this like little profile photo here of Steven as well. And I think those like key parts around these messages are very, very interesting. Short, concise, and super relevant, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. You could just tell, like, seems like a fun guy, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, if it's automated, the people's reaction is like, at least he's honest.
Yeah.
That's a much better reaction than, oh, you tried to deceive me, right? So like use GIFs, send a random thing. Don't worry about your hair being done. Don't worry if you're in a kind of a weird spot, like within reason, like just sort of um I think one other point we haven't brought up that I think is relevant. Don't forget your social skills just because you're on the internet. It bears reminding because people are like, well, should I do this? Should I do that? I don't know. What do your social skills tell you? Like, it's such a fundamental thing of like, should I send an automated video or a real one? I don't know. Would you send people any sort of automated communication? I mean, it's business, so it's a bit different, but like, would you say this verbally to somebody in person, right? Does that trigger a weird feeling in you? And if it does, don't do it on the internet, is a good rule of thumb for all these things. Should I
Yeah.
use that tool? Should I say this? Should my hook be that? I don't know. Would you do it in person? It's just like, there's your filter. And we somehow, normal people get online and just 80% of their social skills go out the window. It's like, what happened to that? You're not in a virtual world. You are in the real world. You are just communicating with technology. It's um, kind of boggles my mind. And so, with tons of questions about like, what's the best DM template? Don't like that one. I mean, there are some, but like, write like you talk. Do you talk? I'm sure you do, unless you, I mean, literally don't talk, in which case, I don't know how you're building a business, but good luck to you. If you do talk, write like you talk, you know, um, all these things. What should I post? I don't know. What do you say when you're talking with people about work at work or, all those things. So, love
Yeah.
these examples. The thread that ties them together is that's how Steven talks, right? Like, I can picture him doing the magic thing, right? While we are all consuming francesinhas or something. Um, so it's consistent, right? And if you see me DM or post something, you can almost hear me say it, right? It kind of aligns with what you are hearing me do now because it's in the same tone. I wrote it. If
Yeah.
I started to talk very differently in DMs or anything, you'd be like, that's not the same thing. There's something weird or disconnected there.
Yeah.
So don't get caught. This is a tools webinar that's not about the tech. Like use the tech to scale the good human stuff. Don't use the tech to paper over weaknesses in lack of interest in the relationships part of this.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So that's a good point, I think, to segue into any questions that anyone may have. But like I guess to kind of recap the flow that's going on there, maybe we should bring Mr. Brady up. I don't know. Let's see, let's bring him up. Raise your hand, Mr. Brady. We'll see if we nailed like your flow, what you think of it as well. Let's bring you up, let's promote you to panelist. Here we go. You may as well join.
Hey, he's coming on again, I think.
Yeah, he's back to back webinars with Triggerfy. This is groundbreaking stuff. Here he is.
We get it
What,
right?
what
That
do you
stash
reckon?
is
Did
off.
we nail your flow? Do we think do we miss out anything key parts there?
No, I think you guys nailed it. It's a pretty
Yeah.
good breakdown. That's what I came here for.
Breakdown
Get
of the own
validation.
strategy.
I think the biggest thing is like it's just being if you can if you can take the automation or any of the tooling, it should be to eliminate all the rote stuff that gives you like the at bats, right? Or gives you the time to be creative, to take, 5 minutes to create a 90-second Loom video and be thoughtful about like the caption you send somebody, right? Like that's the stuff that you should be putting all your effort in. And anything
Mm.
that you can do to like take an hour or 2 hours a day of all the stuff, well, what is the list and who do I reach out to? That's where you let Trigify and Aware, et cetera, give you the leverage so that you can, not rush through the important part, which is building that connection, delivering value, becoming a trusted advisor, et cetera.
And I think this is a great question for you. I'm glad we got you up actually, because this is a non-biased thought process, which is from a bird's eye view, what is the optimal synergy basically between Triggerfy and Aware?
Yeah, I've been trying to figure this out myself too. I think here's how I came to both tools. All right. So I started with Aware because I was already doing some of this stuff manually, and I'm like, it's really annoying to use a spreadsheet or something to focus on the specific people I want to see. I don't want the feed. Then that led me to, okay, well, now that I know who I'm engaging with, I bet a lot of my ICP is also doing it. So I would have VAs go through and manually go through the engagement and build sheets of all my people. And that's when I found Trigify and thought, okay, amazing. So someone else is thinking about this too. How do I marry these? Well, this will help me spend more time. I actually did this in August. I spent no time on LinkedIn and tried to do as much through Aware as possible. And
Nice.
then I used that to feed Trigify when I started using Trigify a month later. And it was like, okay, now I can see, right? Like, this is who I'm paying attention to, and this is who I'm monitoring. I'm already visible here. How do I build? I didn't even start doing outreach to that lead list for a while, but I just figured better to have that list should I need it later and have the data saying, what was the intersection, right, of community member, et cetera.
So you
It's a
took a
very
while
rich
to
way to
reach
do
out to those
CRM.
people. Like you didn't reach out straight away?
Yeah, because I was shit scared of doing a lot of automation without it really figured out yet. Because I had been spending so much time over the last year going from, like 3,000, 4,000 to 7,000 followers and like trying to be really intentional about this. And I didn't want to nuke that. But I had
Yeah.
done a lot of automation with Expandy and some other tools in the past where it didn't really matter. And it took me a little bit of like, okay, there's a thoughtful way to do this, but I'm going to think about it before I just start, like you said, Alex, scaling stupid.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it's a big curse out there.
Quote of the day, scaling stupid, I think is the is
Yeah,
the one. Yeah. Yeah.
that's rad. And then Steven, so you close 48K of consulting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Makes sense. If you're selling SaaS, that's kind of hard to do unless it's like in ACV or ARR. So I wouldn't say, um, yeah, I have never closed 48,000 of SaaS revenue cash collected in
Yeah.
6 weeks. That's difficult. Not impossible if you're enterprise, but just to set expectations, um, that number would be a good context for, ARR. You could get above that in ARR, but like not
Yeah.
that cash collected. In case people are thinking, oh, these are, big gurus doing like big numbers. It's like, okay, but like
No,
maybe in
yeah.
that range, but we're not saying, you're getting to um, you know, 10 million in 2 months, unless you're lovable and you're venture backed and blah blah blah. But
That would
that's
be
not what I'm
nice. That would be
And I
nice.
think
yeah.
it brings up a good point too. Is like, what are the KPIs you should focus on here? Because what I'm doing is selling either consulting or sort of a productized service of how to implement this yourself, right? And so when I get in with the client side, it's really setting the expectation of, okay, what we really want to do is figure out a CAC appropriate number of conversations created with people that you should be growing relationships with, right? And trying to get the mindset around, you're not going to catch a bunch of people who are, you're not going to grow the 5% of your market that needs the solution right now, but
Yeah.
you can capture a lot more of that 40% that's maybe not like solution aware or they're maybe not problem aware just yet. and they may not buy from you now, but yeah, you guys probably get this all the time. You have people who come back 6, 12 months later, and you're the
Oh,
only one who's top of mind, right? So you have to think in that, you know, in
I
this
have a
longer
good,
term.
I have an anecdote for you on this. Um, Revenues in my agency that I'm not super operational in. I got an inbound lead today. The message was like, what can we help you with? It was improve site structure for SEO, prepare for content to be put on blog. Ender, how do you hear about us? It says, I met Alex Boyd 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's on Slack right here. 10 years ago. I remember we had drinks in San Francisco when I still lived in San Francisco.
Mm.
10 years ago. So
Yeah,
don't
it's
burn your bridges.
no man. It's key. Do you know, I find like with us as well, like most of the deals that we do comes like a month after, sometimes 2 months after they even engage with us for the first time on social media or they do their trial. Like, and I think what happens, they come in, do their trial. And like anything in SaaS, it's really hard to, you can't convert everyone, right? You convert like 10 to 20% of the trials that you do. And I think it's the content and the content strategy and in the engagement that basically brings people back. And that's the key. Like, I think that's like the a good note to end on. Like social strategy in general. Like, of course, Mr. Brady closed the load, right, in a short period of time. But what we miss out on that is actually all of the groundwork that was done prior to like
Yeah.
measuring that six. I could close like a million and be like, I closed a million in like a week. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, what has happened like the last few years to get to that
Yeah.
point? And I think social, and this is why a lot of people don't do it. It is a long-term strategy. Personal brand takes a long time to get to where you want it to get. But once you get it there, it's better than anything that you can ever do.
Mhm.
But most people get turned off by it because it doesn't happen instantaneously. It's not like a cold email. I can't
Yeah.
cold email someone and get a meeting. I can do a post and instantly get something. It
Right.
takes time and
Don't get hung up
consistency.
on the attribution side either, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's
you
key.
Thank
know,
you.
It's key.
Thank you.
You can never like it's impossible to get pure attribution on these things. And I think there is a big movement going on around like building brands now and not feeling like you have to attribute it back, which is encouraging that the industry is going that way.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, listen both. Thanks for Mr. Brady. Firstly, thanks for doing great works between the two tools and joining us impromptu at the end there. And Alex, mate, thank you so much for joining and dropping some serious value today for us as well. Where can people find you and aware uh, out of curiosity as well? You might want to chuck that into the chat.
Yeah, LinkedIn's the best place to for get connected, direct traffic. I'm at 20,000 connections, so I'm starting to think about the connection stuff. So like, do include a note like, hey, I saw you in this webinar. It's helpful for me to just remember where we connected. And then yeah, that's the best place.
Yeah, do you know, that's funny you say that. It's literally the same thing that's going through my head now. Like, I don't know why LinkedIn do it. I don't know why they limit you to 30 connections. Obviously, you can get followers more, but like, I'm in
Yeah.
the same scenario. I'm like, shit, I've actually got to start to think about who I connect with now, which kind of sucks
Right.
because like, I've now got like 300 like banked up. And I'm like, you're going to miss important people. Man, honestly,
I
someone
think
who want to
Scott
go out
Leese
and build a
complains
LinkedIn
about this
2.0,
annually.
there's a lot of opportunity, I swear,
It's
because
true.
it's such an annoying tool, which is funny. Cool. There we go. We've got a thanks for accepting you already, Alex. Awesome. Well, listen, thanks both. Really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for joining. We'll be back next week with Clay, which is exciting.
Love it.
All the best.
All right.
Bye.
See you later.
So